Hello, I am Wilson Joffe, and in this video I'll be teaching you how to build a web page, a website using HTML and CSS. I am a web developer and I will be teaching you how to build this website. I'll use the most simplest language possible to explain the concepts as well as show you exactly how to build this website. As you can see, that's the header with the logo, the menu, this top section, the content, and of course the footer. So the very first thing before we dive into here is to first of all understand what we mean by a website. Basically, a website is just a page that has been specially formatted and published on the internet for access by other users worldwide. So a page that has been published on the internet and others can access it, of course, is called a website. And we access websites from web browsers. Websites are basically made up of code, what we call code, which is a special way of instructing the browser, such as Google Chrome that we are viewing this site. It's a way of instructing the browser how to interpret the code, and the code that is usually used to, the first language that is used to code all web pages is called HTML, and the other language called CSS is used to style it, while JavaScript is used to create interaction. Other languages such as PHP, Python, and MySQL are used to handle the backend and also the databases. But for the purpose of this tutorial, we'll look at the HTML and CSS. So HTML is simply a coding language, and it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. It's a language that is used to define the structure of a web page. For example, we have a header here. The top section of the website is called a header. It is thanks to HTML that we can be able to define our menus, define links, add images to this page and define how they appear, as well as put our text and format it in the right way. Then CSS, on the other hand, is what we call cascading style sheet, which is used to add style to our content. Like we have a background, the colors, the font sizes, and how contents are aligned, as well as a lot more. So code is written using text editors, and we have a text editor up here. In the text editor, we are going to write our code and then run that code on a browser. And once we have built our site completely, we will now upload it to a web server, whereby it will be viewable through a domain name. It will be viewable to an audience worldwide. So the very first step we are going to start building our website is to open our file explorer in our computer, and I would like us to all to use this PC. You go to this PC and of course on documents, and what you are going to do is I want you to create a folder which will be a website folder. So you want to create all your folders and include all your assets before you open and start editing your code with your code editor. And in this case, we are going to be using the Visual Studio Code, which is a very great app for writing code. So to do that, let's just create a new folder. Right click and click on we rather right click and click on new, and then on folder, and I'll just name this Wilson website. So once I've done that, I click on enter and I open the folder. Inside, the folder that will contain my HTML, I name it as a new folder, new. While you get into your folder, I want you to note something. Go to view, that is on this top section. Yours may be a different version of Windows, but similar thing. Find where you have view and make sure that your file extension is ticked like you have here for mine. And what you want to do is, now on your website folder, you want to create a folder. Right click and new, and then use any text editor that you have, but then you have to select all, including the extension. In this case it's RTF, which is the extension. Just select all and write it index.html. And once you have done that, hit enter. It will want, most of the time, if you want to change the extension, you click on yes. The next one, we will right click and go to new, and of course enter, and we want to select everything including the extension, and we'll name it style.css, and then we hit enter and confirm. Now we have to create a folder to contain our images, because we need some images on the website. So we create a new folder. We are just going to call it images, and then just look for the images where you have them in your computer. In this case, I have it on my this media folder, and I have already prepared all these for use. So just find your images that you want to use, and then go back to your website folder and paste them under images. What you need to know is the name of these images. Make them simple so that you can be able to link them easily on your web or on your code editor. So now that I've created this web folder made up of HTML, CSS, and the images, files, and folders, what I want to do is to open Visual Studio Code. And in case you don't have Visual Studio Code, just head over to Google Chrome and go and type Visual Studio Code, and then you hit enter, and it will lead you to this website, and you just have to download it from here. And once it's downloaded, you just install. So once you have it there, what you want to do is to open it, and when you open it, you have this screen. So once you have put up all your file, all your website folder, what you want to do is to just drag it, and then what you want to do is to come and drop it here on your Visual Studio, and it is just going to open it as we have here. So we have our index.html, the images. Another way of doing it, which I'll just remove that. I'm just going to remove this particular folder here, and it's removed. Another way we could do this is to open Visual Studio Code, to File, and to Open File, and then what we want to do is just navigate to where our folder was, in this case document and Wilson website, and then we open. And then what we want to do is to click, rather we add a folder. We go to the our computer, and then we want to open the folder, which is in this case is a website folder, Wilson website, and then we just click on add. But I find the drag and drop option, which is more preferable for me most of the time. So now you can now begin adding writing a website. But I would just want us to preview our website right now on Chrome, so that each time we want to see how we are developing it, we just have to click on refresh in the browser. So I just click this, and it will open a very blank website on Chrome. So what I do, I go to my Visual Studio Code. In that case, let me just expand that, and I go to index.html, and anything that is there, any text that is there, I just wipe it so that I have a really blank index.html. You see our images. We have images here which are going to serve us for various purposes. So we need to understand the website structure. The website usually has a header section, which is display section that has the logo and the links. The next section is the entire content, starting from here and going right down, is called the body, and the last section is called a footer. And this is the case with all websites that you see on the internet. So we are going to quickly write the structure of our HTML document, which is which we simply have to go to the index.html and begin to define our web page. So this is the structure. You open with doc type, HTML, and Visual Studio Code. When you start to type, you just give it, which is important. So then, before we move forward, I would like to let you know that HTML works in the form of what we call tags. So tags just help you have an opening tag and a closing tag. So think of sandwich, where there's you open your bread and you put your whatever you want to use it for your sandwich in the middle. So there's an opening tag and there's a closing tag which encloses a content. For example, if you want to bold a text, the tag for bold will stand before the text that you want to bold and after it. And that is how HTML basically works. Then CSS also just has to do with some styles and some attributes that you need to use on your text or whatever images and whatever you want to place on your web page. So we will see that in practice as we do it here. And you will get a document also which will show you how to write your HTML. So here we have already defined, tell the browser that this is an HTML document. The next thing, we want to add an HTML, and what normally we start a tag with a greater than less than symbol, and we have to write what we want to write, HTML, and then we close it like this. And what this editor does is just does it for us automatically, but I'm just going to show you for this first one. So what we are going to do is just the closing tag, we instead use a backslash like I've seen here before we write. So in the middle will be our website content that will be found here. The website also has the head section, so we just use head, and the head contains things like styles, and also contains things like we have styles, and also contain things like our title. So in here we are going to have our styles and titles and so on. Then we also have inside, after the head, we have the body, which contains all the visible part of our website. So this is the basic structure of a web page. Now on the head, we want to add our title, and our title is Wilson Website. And we also in the head want to link this CSS file, and this is how we link a CSS file. We use what we call link, and then we go to real. We tell it that it's a style sheet, and then want to put the source by using which is the link to the file, which is href, and we want to put it style.css, which happens to be the name of our CSS file, and of course we want to close it like that. Now we have linked our CSS, means that when we open our CSS folder and want to add our styles, it will of course show whatever we are styling on this CSS file will apply to this HTML. Now that we are done with that, let's go to the body and start adding our website. And on the body, the first thing that I want to add is our header. So we just use the header tag, and inside the header tag, we want to just define with a kind of a container with a div, and div is just a sectioning element in div. So it's just a section, and inside this div tag we want to put a class, and we call it container, like that. And so inside this div tag we want to now start having our we have another div, and that div and this div would be where we will put our logo. So I want us to just use tab to move this a little bit like this. So inside this div we'll have our class. CSS class is just a word, that we use to link to style elements. So you'll see how it works in just a moment. So you have class, and we'll use a class logo, and we'll include that in our, and then to link our logo we have to put an image, and our logo is like an image, but we'll use it in the form of a. So before we even start doing this, let's just save. I'm using Control S. You can also go to File and Save. So let's just go to our CSS file and do something here. The first thing we want to do on our CSS file is to give it, you just use a star and we open with these curly braces, and what we want to do is to give it a margin of 0. We also give it padding. These are some styles that will help our web page to be intact. 0. Then we have a font family. We want to give that to, let's just see if Calibri is there. Okay, let's choose this one. And we also want to text decoration. Want to give that to none. So these are just some of the styles that we want to use to set our web page. Like this margin and padding, we don't want any empty space around our web page. That's why we're giving that. Then we also just need to define the font, and then our text, we should define the decoration, not the browser. So the next thing we are going to do is just to use the CSS class where we put an as container, and we are going to give it some style on our header. We put it as, we use a container. So what we want to do, we want to give it a width of 1100, like that, pixels. Then margin, we want to give it a margin of auto. So now that we are done with that, we have to also style our header. And when we are styling elements that are not classes, we don't put a dot, but when we are styling classes, we put a dot. So we have header, and put our curly braces and open. And what we want to do is we want to put the background, of our header, background color, let's use blue. And so at this point we can just refresh our web page that we open on Google Chrome and see what we're having so far. So all we have is our name that has changed, but we will start seeing things happening in just a moment. And still on this header, what we want to also do, want to give it a height of 100 pixel. Then we want to give it a width of 100%, and a z-index simply means that it should stay on top. No matter what comes, it should stay on top. Z-index, we should give it like 10, and then position, it should be fixed, so our header should not move, or it should not move with other things. If we still refresh our page, you now see that we now have this header just like we have on this other side. So now that we have our header intact, we have just use CSS to define the style of that header. The next thing, we want to go back to our HTML, and we now start adding our logo. So to add our logo, we add like an image. So we want to add, first of all, like a link, and then we'll add an image there. So our link, then what we want to do inside this link, it's not linking anywhere yet, so we just use hash when the link is empty, and then we want to add an image tag here inside of this link tag, and here we want to add the directory, so it's under images folder slash, now is logo. So we save that and then we refresh, so you can now see that our logo, which is this under our images, is this. So you can see that it has started appear. We have linked it to the site. And now the next thing we want to do after logo is to add our navigation. So we just use our nav, the tag that we call nav. And so to put our navigation links, we just need to put a link A like this, and we just put hash them and then use home. I'm just going to copy this for the others so that it saves us time. So I just need to paste that and then we will edit. So the next one is about, the next is services, so it's just a basic website, and contact. So we save that and then we refresh our site. You now see it's kind of dark under here, but we are going to use CSS to handle that. So the way we handle that with CSS, first of all, we have put our logo, so let's open the CSS file, and then we want to use the class that was logo, and what we want to do, we want to give it a width of 30%, that is, you occupy 30% of the header, and we want to give it to float it to the left, that is, you remain on the left side, and also want to make it top padding or padding top. Want to give it a padding top of 30 pixel. I'll show you how that is in just a moment. So let's just save and see how our logo has been affected. So see where the logo was, so let's just refresh that, and you now see that it has taken its rightful position here, just like we have it here. So what we have to do from here is to now put our CSS for the nav, and I've told you that when it's just an HTML tag, we don't put a dot, but when it's a class, we put a dot. So our nav, now we have to float. The navigation is the menu, so we have to float it. So it float just like, should it be on the left or on the right? So we float it to the right side, and also what we do is we give it a line height, the line height of our elements on that. The line height should be, we give it a line height of 100 pixel. That's how long should the lines be. And let's just see the effect. So you see, this is where our the links are hiding. Let's just refresh that. So you now see they are on this other side, and we want to now start styling the links. So to style the link, we need to select it separately, which is nav. Then the links are selected by A, and then that. And what we want to do is we want to give it a text, a letter spacing. Let's give it a color first. A color of white. The next thing we want to do is to give it a letter spacing of 4 pixels, of 2 pixels rather. And then we also want to give it a font size of 20 pixels, and also want to give it a margin, that is the margin of each link. Let's just leave this and we save that, and you see the effect on the side before we continue. So you see the links are like stuck together. So we want to use margin, and want to give it a top and bottom will be the first value, 0 pixel, and want to give 10 pixel to the 10 pixel will be the left and right. And so let's save that, and I believe our links should be okay. So we have the links, nav links here like we have here. We could give it like 25 pixels on the font size. Okay, and then refresh that. Okay, now that we have gotten our navigation, the next thing, let's go back to our HTML. The next thing is for us to, after the nav, you know, it's like after the header, the next thing that we are going to do is for us to go to now this banner area that we have on this side like this. We want to put that area. So to put that area, here is how we do it. We will use a div tag. So open a div, and inside that div, we want to give it a class. Let's call that class banner area, and or rather, that is not how we do it. Class div, then we have class, and then we call it banner area. Okay, and then inside this, what we want to do is we want to use a heading 2, h2, to put the text that you have up there. So I will just like, I am a web developer, and I say I love building websites, something like that. I save it, and then when I refresh, you know, it's not yet showing because it's somewhere hiding behind there. So we will use CSS to put it in the rightful place. So we go to CSS, and we want to start giving CSS style to the banner area. So we take the banner area on our CSS file, and that is the class banner area, and with our CSS open and close, what we want to do is we want to give it a width of 100% for the banner area, and we want to give it a height of 500 pixels, and also we want to give it a padding, which should be a padding top. We should push our content down, so we give 90 pixels, and we also want to put, now let's just see how that affects on the website. So we now see we have this text here. That's the text we are putting. Now when we look here, we see it's bigger and it's bolder. So what we have to do is let's just add that background image. I mean this image of the background. Let's just add that. So what we do is we add background image, and what we want to add is we use URL, and inside here we put the image that I want to use, and in this case the image that I want to use is images slash, it's called heels. If you look at my image folders, you see the image here. I've already, so you have to name yours and make everything ready. So if I save that and I just refresh that, you now see we have that, but it's not yet okay. Now you see that our text is just like on one line. So we want to go to our HTML and use a tag that we call BR tag. BR tag, like that. So it sends our content down to the next line. So let's just refresh, and then you now see, even though not very visible, it's now 2 lines. Okay, So at that point, what we want to do is to go back to our CSS, and what we want to do on our CSS now is to go to the banner area and that H2. So we go to banner area, and then we want to style the H2 that we gave in HTML, and we want to add our CSS. So the style that we are going to give it, we'll put padding top will be 8% to push it down a little bit. And what we also have is font size, and the font size that we're going to give it will be 60 pixels, so that is big, like the what we have just sample we've seen. And then we have text transform. We want to put this to be uppercase, and so we just put it uppercase. And the last thing we want to do is there is the color, which is going to be white. And so we save, and of course if you know your color code you can use. Let's just reload that, and we see it's now getting interesting. So what we want to do now is to centralize the text. So we instead use the on the banner area, we instead centralize all items in there. We call we say text align, then we say center, and it's going to center our text really fast. So now our text is centered. One more thing we need, we have like some lines like here, duplicates here. So we are going to use what we call the attribute that we call background size. We are going to say let it cover the entire area. And then another thing we are going to do is background position. Means that everything in the background should be positioned. We want to tell it the position that it should be center. Okay, let's save that, and then you see how it is. We refresh, so you now see that everything centers very well and has covered the entire area. So we are done with this part, top section. Yeah. So the next thing we are going to do here is now we are going to the after this banner area. Now the next thing we want to put is we want to go to the content, that is to put this other part of the page here that you see here, the text. So what we want to do is to put, we will use a div class, and that div class, we used a div to define it and say that the class of the div, we'll give it a class called content area. And inside of it we are going to have something that we call we are going to use the very style that we had for container. So this is a container. Now we are inside here, we are inside this div. What we are going to do is we will add another div. So we'll add another div here and say that this is we give it a class container, so that is where it will contain our content. So the class rather container. And so now we want to start adding our content in paragraphs. So what we do is just add let's just add H2. Let's use heading 2, and we want to add on our heading 2, or want to add about. So this should have rather be on the same line. Then about me. Yeah. And we save that. Let's just refresh the page and see if that. So you see it's now here. And you know, the container that we define up here is still the very container. You see it's on the same line that is containing it. So one CSS class, you can use it in different places, and when you use your style in the CSS, it will affect the anywhere that you have used that class. So the next thing we want to do after this is actually the fact that I think we have a div here, which is this div opens here, and okay, the two divs close well. So the next thing we want to just add is use paragraphs, the paragraph tags, to add some content. So whatever falls within your paragraph opening and closing tag, you know, it will be visible. So we will just grab some text here. Let's just grab some text here. This one, and we paste it here, and we now want to add an image. What we want to do is want to add the img tag to add our image, and let the link to our image. Now we want to go to the folder is images slash, let's add Wilson1, and we will give it a class, our alt text. You can just, on the alt, you can put the alternative text. If the image doesn't display on the browser, what do you want the alternative text to just display? So after this, we'll put a class, and we'll give that class, we will call it img. Let's just use img center, and then we save it. So if we want to refresh this page we are building, this is our website. If we reload this, you know, the image is too big. So what I want to do is to immediately go to our CSS, and what we want to do on that image, our CSS, but before that, we'll just have to do a little bit on our content area first. So let's add CSS instead to the content area. Content area. So that is that, and then we want to put the width to 100%. And then the next thing we want to do is on a content area h2, that's the about me section, content area, then the h2, the heading 2 that we gave it. So let's just open that and close. And what we want to do is we want to add a padding to just 2% on the top and bottom, and then that is 2% on the top and bottom, and on the left and right is 0%. So we can use pixels for percent. So that's why you see me doing that. Then now let's move to the content area. Rather not read this. This was h2, so we're supposed to put the padding on this h2. Let's instead put the padding to top to 30 pixels, and we put the font size to be 40 pixels, and then we also want to put the text align to the center. So all this style is just to, like on our previous side, you see this is what we are styling, but this is how it looks like. So we have now made it so you now see that it looks good here. The next thing, we are going to be targeting our paragraph text. So what we want to do on our paragraph is we want to still use content area, but this time around we want to target the paragraphs. So what we want to do is to open our braces, and what we want to do is to padding the padding top, the padding, it should be 2% at the top and 0% on the sides. That's just what this means. And what we also want to do is to just give it a line height of 30 pixels, so that it should, it's now looks congested, but if we give it a good line height, now you see there's some space there, like this. And of course we can give it a font size of, no, we already give content area, so let's give it a font size of like 22 pixels. Yeah, and then we save that. So we reload, and you see the text here is a little bigger. Then for our image, we need to target that image on CSS. We already put a class called image center, and what I want to do is to say that the width is we'll give it a width of 70%, a height of 70% too, so that it should be occupy just 70% of the page. And then we reload that. I think we didn't save that. Okay, I think it was img, not image, img center. So you missed the spelling, it wouldn't affect. img center, and then we reload that. Now you can see the image is now fine. So the next thing, we are just going to, after the image that we added, we are just going to continue to add more text inside our paragraph. So let's add more text in our paragraph. Let's just copy this text, and we put here inside this paragraph tag. We can even copy the paragraph text and put more paragraphs, and we can put we can even put a different image, by just even copying this and just replacing the image link. Can just copy that and paste, and like this was supposed to be over here. Instead, the location, now we can change that the location of our image to be a different photo. So we can instead take Wilson 2, and then we save that. And so when we go to our site that we are building, this is it, and reload. Now you see we have different content here. We can do a lot of interesting things. So the last part of this will be to add the footer. And to add the footer, we are going to again, still on our HTML, we are going to use a div, just like we use div for sections. And inside this, we'll give it a class called footer for styling purposes. And inside our footer, we will now give a footer tag, a footer tag, and what we will do is we'll just put our links. So since the links are the same like those of the header, let me just grab those. It's just the same links like we put on the header, so we'll just grab it and put it like that. And the next thing we want to do is to put the copyright text, take that text at the bottom. So we want to use it as a form of a paragraph, and we want to just give this paragraph a class and call it copyright, and so that we can style it, and we say Wilson website, something like that, maybe 2021, something like that. And yeah, that's that. So we save, and if we reload our website, you now see it's down here, but it occupies less space. So we want to look at how do we style that. How do we style our footer? So we go to CSS and add some CSS to style it. And what we do is we want to put the class called footer that we use, footer. And what we want to do, we want to give a letter spacing. To the letter spacing that we use will be 4 pixels. Let's just use 2 pixels. And then we'll have our font size. The font size that we use there, let's use 25 pixels. And we also have color. We just use color to be black. And we also have we can also have margin. The margin will be, let's give it a margin of 0 pixels to the top and bottom, and cost 10 pixels to the left and right. Yeah. Okay, so this way the footer links, rather we use the A, those are the links. So let's select the footer itself and add its own style. So on the footer, what we want to do is we want to give it a padding top, which is like the space at the top of it. Let's give it 40 pixels. Then also we want to add want to give it, on our footer, want to give it a padding at the bottom. Let's give it a padding at the bottom, bottom. Let's give it also 40 pixels. That just adds some space on our footer. And then the thing we want to do there was just to give the background color. Let's give it a gray. We can use a color code. That code is EE. So that is a gray color. So we save that, and well, let's use text align here to align our footer items to the center. So this ties all on the footer. Let's see the impacts. Look at where it is. Let's see the impact of that style. So yeah, we are there. So instead, this text align should have gone instead to the footer itself. So let's see that, and then we save. I believe it will take it there. And then the copyright text, the links, I think we should give it the copyright the copyright, that's the class that we said copyright. We should be, let's just give it a padding top, which should be like 10 pixels, and yeah, then we save that. So you see it's too choked. The padding top helps to, I think that's not yet enough. I think that should be like maybe 30 pixels. Let's save that and see the effect. I think we rather need to use, did we cache the right copyright on the HTML? Copyright class copyright, did we get that right? Okay, so the only reason was that our full stop skip a little bit. Okay, so we now have a little bit of a distance here. So that's basically how we design a website using HTML and CSS. And once you are done with all this, you know your website folders are still inside a website document. So what you want to do is to purchase web hosting, get a domain name, and then you upload that to the web server and link to your domain name, and your site will be live on the internet. You can create more pages just like this and link them together. So that was that. I hope you found some value, and just take note of the notes that I've sent to you to learn more and to see how you can expand this. I hope this helps you. See you in our next lessons or tutorials. Bye bye.